Imagine the following scene. You are outside a dense forest. The ground trembles slightly beneath your feet, and suddenly, emerging from the vegetation, a snake appears. But not just any snake. A snake the size of a bus, more than 13 meters long and weighing more than 1,000 kilos. And then on the other side you hear that unmistakable sound. The low rumble, the heavy step, the gigantic snout of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The two monsters look at each other. And now the question that no one could stop thinking about after I asked you, would the most powerful bite in the history of dinosaurs be enough to destroy the most colossal snake that ever existed? Stay with me until the end, because science's answer will leave you floored. Speak up, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we enter a confrontation that seems like something out of a science fiction film, but is completely based on real fossils, real biomechanics, and real science. We're going to compare two of the scariest animals that have ever set foot, or crawled, on this planet. And in the end, we will have an answer most people don't expect. But first of all, let's introduce the competitors. First, the T-Rex. Everyone knows it, everyone loves to fear it. Tyrannosaurus Rex lived at the end of the Cretaceous period, around 66 to 68 million years ago, in North America. It was a bipedal predator that could reach 12 or 13 meters in length and weigh between 8 and 14 tons, according to the most robust estimates. But what makes the T-Rex isn't its size. It's that mouth, those teeth, that absurd force concentrated in a single point in space when he closed his jaw. Now the second competitor, the Titanoboa. And look, if you've never heard of her, prepare your heart. Titanoboa kerajonensis lived approximately 58 to 60 million years ago in what is now Colombia. So yes, they are separated by a few million years of history. The T-Rex was already gone when the Titanoboa arrived, but science has no problem doing this theoretical exercise, and neither will we. Because what matters here is physics, biology, biomechanics, and that is timeless. The Titanoboa was a snake, an absurd snake. Fossils found in Cerrejón, Colombia, indicate that it reached 13, perhaps 14 meters in length. It weighs more than 1,200 kilos by some estimates. It was related to modern boa constrictors and anacondas, and probably hunted in a similar way, using its body to constrict, squeeze, and suffocate, but on a scale that we can barely imagine. So here's the matchup: a T-Rex bite against the body of a Titanoboa. And the scientific question we need to answer is, would the T-Rex's bite force be enough to pierce, break, or destroy the body structure of a Titanoboa? Let's find out. And for that, we first need to understand what this bite was really capable of doing. For many years, scientists have estimated the T-Rex's bite force at high, but reasonable values for a dinosaur. About 40,000 newtons, about 50,000. And then came the study published in 2012 in the journal Scientific Reports, led by Gregory Erickson from Florida State University. They used sophisticated computer models based on the reconstituted cranial muscles of the T-Rex, and came up with a number that made the scientific world open its mouth. Central estimate, approximately 35,000 to 57,000 newtons of bite force. But in some scenarios, considering the more robust posterior teeth, reaching values close to 183,000 to 235,000 newtons of pressure per tooth. To give you an idea of what this means, an adult African lion bites with around 1,200 to 1,500 newtons. The Nile crocodile, champion among modern reptiles, reaches 22,000 newtons. The T-Rex would put the crocodile in his pocket and even give him change. But bite force alone doesn't tell you everything. What destroyed it wasn't just the pressure. It was the combination of pressure and the geometry of the teeth. The T-Rex's teeth were unlike those of any modern predator. They were wider, stockier, almost banana-shaped. They weren't for slicing, they were for piercing and crushing bone. And here comes a concept that will be central to our discussion: contact pressure. Because distributed force is one thing, force concentrated in a point 3 centimeters wide and 5 to 8 centimeters long is quite another. The researchers estimated that the T-Rex's teeth exerted contact pressures on the order of hundreds of megapascals. For comparison purposes, mild steel starts to deform at 250 megapascals. Cortical human bone can withstand around 170 megapascals before fracturing. T-Rex chewed titanosaur dinosaur bones like cookies. There is fossil evidence of this. Coprolites, which are fossilized T-Rex feces containing fragments of crushed bone, fragments of dense sauropod bone. This is documented. This is real. So, what happens when that force meets the Titanoboa? Wait, before I answer that, I need to tell you something about the Titanoboa's body that most people don't know, and that will completely change the equation. I'll tell you soon. Before that, let me ask you something so you can answer in the comments, okay? If you could observe this confrontation from a safe place, about 3 rows away, say, which of the two would you bet on right away, on intuition? T-Rex for brute strength or Titanoboa for adaptability? Tell me in the comments, because your answers are always amazing and I read them all. Coming back, Titanoboa's body. We know what a snake's body is like. Muscle, lots of muscle, tough skin, interconnected ribs that function as a kind of distributed armor. But Titanoboa wasn't just any snake. It was a snake on the scale of a giant land animal, and this changes physics in surprising ways. Studies on the biomechanics of large snakes, especially anacondas and pythons, show that their muscle density and ability to redistribute impact throughout the body are extraordinary. An adult green anaconda, which weighs 250 kilograms and is 6 meters long, can move and contract in ways that absorb impacts that would break the bones of an equivalent mammal. Now scale that to 12-13 meters and more than 1,000 kilos of muscle mass. Titanoboa's body was, in biomechanical terms, one of the most resilient structures that ever existed. But resilience has a limit. And then we arrive at a central point in the science of this confrontation. Let's talk about vertebrae. Titanoboa's spinal column was made up of hundreds of vertebrae. Fossils found at Cerrejón show individual vertebrae measuring more than a foot in diameter. They are the largest snake vertebrae ever recorded in the history of paleontology. These vertebrae were dense, robust, designed to support the colossal weight of an animal that needed to move both on land and in water. The real scientific question then is, could the T-Rex's bite puncture and fracture these vertebrae? And here we enter an exercise that paleontologists themselves do when studying predatory interactions, analysis of bone damage. There are fascinating studies where researchers look at bite marks on fossils and can reconstruct the force and angle of a strike. With T-Rex, bite marks found on Triceratops and Hadrosaur bones show that the teeth penetrated completely into high-density bone structures, and here's the chilling detail, and then the bones were fragmented by the additional pressure of the jaws closing. If researchers apply these models to the estimated diameter and density of Titanoboa's vertebrae, the simulation looks like this. Would the T-Rex's bite have enough force to fracture Titanoboa's vertebrae? Yes. Under ideal conditions, yes, and this but is huge, this requires the T-Rex to be able to hold the snake in place long enough to complete the bite. And that's where things get much more interesting. Man, if you've been here until now, you're really enjoying this dive into paleontology, biomechanics, the history of life on Earth. And if you like it, do me a favor that costs nothing. Go there and like the video now. Serious. This simple gesture is what tells the algorithm that this content is worth it, and it's what allows me to continue bringing you videos like this for free. Don't leave it for later. Go there, click, and come back here, because the final answer hasn't arrived yet. Back to the confrontation. The T-Rex, despite all its brute strength, had a fascinating anatomical limitation. Its arms, tiny, proportionally inaccessible. The T-Rex did not hug its prey. He didn't hold back. He bit, and his mouth was literally everything. Prey that escaped from between the teeth, escaped. The Titanoboa, on the other hand, was an animal of constriction. The primary defense mechanism and attack was the entire body. Tens of meters of muscle that curl, contract, and suffocate. Studies with modern anacondas show that the constriction pressure of a large anaconda can reach 7 to 9 kilograms per square centimeter. This is enough to collapse the lungs of a large mammal and stop the heart of an adult caiman. Now scale this to Titanoboa, and the constriction pressure estimated by researchers using allometric models based on size could reach values between 15 and 25 kilograms per square centimeter. Some models reach even higher numbers, depending on anatomical assumptions. And now we have a real problem for the T-Rex. Because while it tries to position its head to deliver that devastating bite, what is the Titanoboa doing? She's messing around. She is using the absurd length of her body to trap her back legs, to immobilize the torso, to compress the rib cage. The T-Rex had a huge rib cage, yes, but bone can withstand pressure up to a certain point, and a T-Rex with its hind legs immobilized and its trunk being compressed progressively loses its ability to resist, loses balance, loses bite force, because bite force in quadrupeds and bipeds is partially supported by body posture. You take away the posture, you reduce the efficiency of the bite, but then the T-Rex doesn't have a chance. It's not that simple, because here comes another element that science considers crucial in any analysis of predation: who attacks first and where. If the T-Rex manages to land a precise bite on the Titanoboa's anterior cervical region, the first 2-3 meters from the head, it could cause enough neurological or vascular damage to immediately compromise the snake's constriction capacity. The Titanoboa as a reptile depends on neural signals that run along the spine to coordinate its muscles. A cut or fracture in the anterior cervical region could, in theory, disrupt the coiling coordination. But here's the problem. A snake's head is the hardest place to bite in combat. Snakes are fast, they are unpredictable. Titanoboa, despite its size, was an active predator that hunted Paleocene-era crocodiles, fast, aggressive animals. She wouldn't sit around waiting. And here comes a point that I found fascinating when I researched this video. There is a concept in predatory biomechanics called the window of opportunity to attack. This is the moment when a predator has the position, distance and angle necessary for an effective strike. For T-Rex, this window with Titanoboa would be extremely narrow because the snake is in constant motion and never offers a fixed point of contact for more than fractions of a second. For Titanoboa, the window of opportunity is much wider because it does not need a specific position. Any part of the T-Rex's body that she can wrap around is enough to start the process. And in a 13-meter snake, it wraps around one leg, wraps around half the trunk, wraps around the neck. Several simultaneous possibilities. Now you might be thinking, but that's okay. The T-Rex can get a bite before the Titanoboa curls up, right? And that's true. But here comes something that changed my view of T-Rex completely when I read it for the first time. The T-Rex probably wasn't as agile as popular culture makes it out to be. Locomotion studies, such as the one published in the Journal of Theoretical Biology in 2002 by John Hutchinson, have shown that, from its weight and leg proportions, the adult T-Rex likely had a fast walking speed of 17 to 25 kilometers per hour. It wasn't an explosive running creature. He was a predator of strength and endurance. Titanoboa, on the other hand, in estimates of movement in an aquatic or semi-swampy environment, could move with surprising agility for an animal of its size. Large modern constrictor snakes are faster in their coiling motion than intuition suggests. A 6-meter green anaconda can envelop an average animal in a matter of seconds. Escalate this to the Titanoboa, and the winding speed in the first moments of the confrontation could be decisive. But wait, before I give you the final verdict, I need to tell you about a variable that no one talks about in these discussions. A variable that changes the result depending on the environment where the confrontation takes place, and it has to do with something that paleontology discovered about Titanoboa that is completely counterintuitive. Hang in there. Hey, before I continue, if you've made it this far and aren't yet subscribed to the channel, now is the time. Because we're here every week doing exactly that, diving deep into real science, into paleontology, into evolutionary biology, in a way that you won't find anywhere else. Press the red subscription button, activate the bell, and you won't miss anything again, serious. The variable, the environment. The Titanoboa was not a pure land animal. Studies of the Cerrejón fossils, published mainly by Jonathan Bloch and Carlos Jaramillo since 2009, indicate that the Titanoboa was an animal from a river and swamp environment. It lived in dense tropical forests with many bodies of water and hunted mainly in rivers and lakes. Like modern anacondas, it was probably more efficient in water than on dry land. The T-Rex, on the other hand, was an animal from more open, semi-arid environments. The geological formations where T-Rex fossils are found, such as the Hell Creek Formation, indicate an environment of open plains, open forests, riverbanks, but not dense aquatic environments. On open dry land, the T-Rex has more room to maneuver, more time to position its bite, less risk of being caught at a postural disadvantage. In shallow water, or in a dense forest environment, the Titanoboa is in its habitat. It has the advantage of mobility, environmental perception and tactics. And here is the scientific verdict, not the movie verdict, not the fantasy verdict, The verdict that emerges when you apply physics, biology, biomechanics, and paleontology to the problem. On open dry land, the T-Rex has a real window of opportunity. A precise bite to the Titanoboa's head or anterior cervical region would cause enough damage to incapacitate or kill the snake before it could fully coil. The T-Rex's bite force, applied with precision, could fracture the Titanoboa's vertebrae, which are robust but not proof against 230,000 newtons of contact pressure. In this scenario, the odds slightly favor the T-Rex as the winner, especially if it attacks first. In an aquatic or dense forest environment, the scenario is reversed. Titanoboa has the advantage of mobility and environment. The T-Rex on unstable ground loses bite efficiency. The likelihood of the Titanoboa being able to wrap itself around at least part of the T-Rex before the bite is executed increases significantly. And once coiled, Titanoboa's estimated constriction pressure between 15 and 25 kilograms per square centimeter would be enough to compromise the breathing and circulation of any animal, including a T-Rex. But there's one final point I need to add, and that's where science gets really philosophical. Because the truth is that the T-Rex didn't face prey that could move in 3 dimensions around its body. The entire evolution of the T-Rex's teeth, bite force, and hunting strategy was optimized for prey that stayed on the ground, fled in a straight line, or defended itself with horns or tail. The Titanoboa would represent a type of threat for which the T-Rex had no evolutionary adaptation. It would be the hunter finding a challenge completely outside his repertoire. And that, let's face it, is fascinating, because it shows that size and brute strength have limits, that evolution is not a ladder where the biggest always wins. It's a web of specializations, of niches, of unique solutions to unique problems. And speaking of unique problems and solutions, I need to tell you something about the channel. Making this type of video, researching scientific papers, studying biomechanics, reconstructing what paleontology says about animals that lived tens of millions of years ago, that takes time, a long time, and love, but also resource. And if this video gave you something, a new idea, a new curiosity, a desire to know more about the world that existed before us, consider becoming a member of the channel or leaving a contribution for Valo de May. Each support goes directly to research for the next video. Go straight so we can continue doing this the way you deserve. No clickbait, no superficiality, with real science. This means a lot to me, in truth. So, back to our epic showdown, the T-Rex versus the Titanoboa. The final answer condensed. The T-Rex's bite has enough theoretical force to structurally destroy the Titanoboa's body. But this bite would need to be executed in ideal conditions, with precision, without Titanoboa being able to start the constriction process beforehand. And in real conditions, with both animals in motion, with the snake's predatory instinct and the serpent's colossal mass at play, the result would be uncertain. It depended on who attacked first, what the environment would be, what the region of initial contact would be. Science doesn't resolve this with a so-and-so wins easy. Science resolves this by saying, both were extraordinary animals, each with a set of adaptations that made them dominant in their niche. And putting the two together doesn't produce an obvious winner. It produces one of the most biologically interesting confrontations that evolutionary theory can imagine. And that brings me to the question I leave you with today. If evolution had rolled the dice differently, and the T-Rex and Titanoboa had existed at the same time, in the same environment for millions of years, how do you think each would have evolved in response to the other? Would the T-Rex have developed new hunting strategies? Would the Titanoboa have become even bigger or faster, or more poisonous? Answer me this in the comments. I want to know what you think, because that's the most exciting part of paleontology. Not just what was, but what could have been. Science does not have a time machine. There is no arena. There is no real way to do this test. But there is something better. There are fossils that keep stories. There is mathematics that reconstructs forces. There is biology that reveals what mussels did 60 million years ago. And as long as we have these tools and this curiosity, we will continue to discover that reality is always wilder, more surprising and more incredible than any fiction we could invent. The T-Rex was not invincible. The Titanoboa was not indestructible. Both were genius evolutionary solutions for completely different worlds. And the fact that we can sit here today, look at these fossilized bones and reconstruct a battle that never happened, using physics and biology, That says everything about what makes science extraordinary. Until next time, and don't forget, the greatest monster that ever existed is always just a discovery away.